Okay. Thank you so much for making time. There is so much talk about how government can win the fight against Galamsey. And since the fight started sometime in 2017, and there was a media coalition that was formed to raise awareness about the harm of Galamsey and the fact that it was, causing untold destruction to our water bodies and also our lands in various parts of the country. That coalition did a great deal of work on the level of awareness creation. And when the fight started, some of us had cause to complain about the methodology because we felt the methodology could have been better. Galamsey has been the only source of, livelihood for many Ghanaians over the past few, if not centuries, decades, because when you listen to some people, they tell you that in the past, people could still do one form of mining or another. So it stands to be verified whether before the arrival of our colonial masters, our forefathers, our forebears were able to mine gold. And this issue has been there for quite a long time. Government after government has made an effort to tackle the issue of Galamsey. So when this government came into power, when it took over the reins of, this country in 2017, it started in earnest to tackle the issue of Galamsey. A minute. It started in earnest. I don't know how these devices can affect the sound quality. Yeah, so government started tackling the issue of Galamsey. And what some of us said at that time was that the intent was good, because no nation would want to import potable water from other countries. And the awareness creation that was done, I was able to drum home the fact that if Ghana didn't do anything about the destruction of our water bodies, then in no time we would be importing water from abroad. That was quite scary, and many people embraced the idea that Galamsey should be clamped down upon by whatever means necessary. I came out to say, and I'm sure many other people came out to say, well, the intention was good. Tackle Galamsey because of the destruction of our water bodies. Tackle Galamsey because of the destruction of our lands. But then, how you do it, the methodology is as important as what you want to achieve eventually. So there was this back and forth. There was a promise that young people who would be forced out of the alluvial rivers or creeks and the pits would be given an alternative source of livelihood. And I'm asking, what are those alternative sources of livelihood that have been provided young people and that have been asked to stop this Galamsey business? So we cautioned that if there was only going to be only a military or a security approach, then the young people that would be robbed of the only source of livelihood they have known all their lives would be forced to engage in social vices to eke out a living. And so we said, of course, if you stop Galamsey in the whole of the Ashanti region, the main cosmopolitan area within the region, its capital, Kumasi, was going to suffer. if you stopped Galamsey in the eastern region, Accra was going to suffer. And true to our, commitment to tackling this issue, we drummed home this point. And it is quite evidential for everybody to see that since the Operation Vanguard started to tackle Galamsey, there has been an increase in the spate of, crimes, armed crimes in the Republic of Ghana. Some causing a lot of fear and panic, like attacks on police officers, highway robbery cases, and all that. So people have theorized how we can tackle the issue of Galamsey. Some in academia have presented papers. I'm sure some people too have also presented proposals to the state as to how this issue can be tackled. But we didn't do too well on the alternative job creation initiative. Because if you are able to provide alternative job opportunities that these young people can fall on, then they would have no reason to want to continue doing Galamsey. But here was the case, you were depriving them of their only source of livelihood, and no viable alternatives were created. So we came out to raise serious concerns about the methodology that was being adopted by government to tackle the issue of Galamsey. So now this is how far we have come. And an investigative body took it up upon itself to do investigations as to whether there are, excesses in the conduct of the fight against Galamsey. We thought, coming from the civil society advocacy point of view, would be able to proffer viable alternatives so that instead of using brute force to tackle the issue of Galamsey, we could use advocacy, social intervention, community level engagement, and all that to be able to tackle this canker. But this is how far we have come as a country. Now, the findings of this investigative body are out, and those findings are in the form of a documentary. And the documentary has been aired. Many people have said it. People have got mixed reactions to the documentary. But the government has come out to state clearly that it will not act on the spur of the moment, because individual A was caught on tape with some commentary that would direct the thinking of the viewer. Such an individual should immediately be fired. The government says it's not going to toe that line. So government says, bring us the unedited footage, and they are technical people. We have so many intel and security agencies in the Republic of Ghana. We have the Ministry of Interior, we have the Ministry of Defense, and all the agencies under them. The CID, Police Intel, National Security, Bureau of National Investigations, that will soon be Bureau of National Intelligence. Then you have Defense Intel, you have so many intel and security agencies in the Republic of Ghana whose mandate it is to tackle some of these issues. So the deployment was done, a multi-agency task force in the form of Operation Vanguard. But then this investigative body has done some piece of work. And government has indicated, unlike previously, where such premieres or such movies or such documentaries would lead to outright sacking of people on the spur of the movement, government says no. This time there is going to be a change in the status quo. Bring the whole of the footage, because you can cover an event for 3 solid hours. And if you cherry pick what minute within those 3 hours you want to show people, if you pick what 10 minutes or 2 minutes or 3 minutes you would want to show people to shape their idea of what is happening within a certain sector, government says that is not conclusive enough. That is not conclusive enough. So it is important, and much so the commentary that is passed makes the verdict a foregone conclusion. It's just like watching a football match. You try and watch the match with commentary in the background. Your view of the players will depend upon what the commentator tells you. Then mute your television set and watch the same match. Then, based upon the footage that is just before your hand and your eyes, you'll be able to shape your own independent perception about every individual player on the field. So I keep telling people, a video camera may not tell you the full story, because it depends upon the angle or perspective from which the shooting is done or from which the recording is done, if it is a secret recording. And it also depends on the time, it also depends on the angle, it depends on the time. So how much of the recorded footage is shown or is showed would give us a certain idea. So instead of just telling people, by showing them a minute of a video, and then you pass commentary over it, chaperoning them, so to speak, to a certain destination to shape the final idea they will have about people that are secretly filmed, leaves so much to be desired. Even though we recognize efforts that are being made by everybody to tackle one great canker in the system that is militating against the long-term development of the Republic of Ghana. So, great intent, great deployment of boys on the ground, but then the question still remains, can we pass judgment only because an edited video has been made available and there is scanty commentary that is rolled over it, that is passed over it? So the announcement by government that it wants the raw and edited footage is a watershed moment in the operations of this investigative body. This investigative body has done quite some work over the years. Most of its work has received tremendous, acclaim from the public. But in recent times, all of us, not because I ever had a client that was a victim of the activities of this, investigative body, but all of us have had cause to complain, raise concerns, because when you want to catch a thief, you want to catch that thief in their natural environment. But if they tell you somebody is a carjacker, he steals cars, and based upon your own preliminary information, you go close to where the person stays, leave your ignition on with your front door open, and you go hide somewhere and you record the person, thinking that you would use that as a yardstick to tell whether the person is indeed a carjacker, then I think your work is not convincing enough. It's not convincing enough. How about leaving the thief, leaving the carjacker in his own natural environment and putting in place mechanisms to catch the person red-handed. It's just like hearing that somebody is a womanizer. And if you want to prove to the world that the person is a womanizer, you can actually try and tail the person, find out their hangouts, what pubs they go to, what hotels they patronize. So if you catch them in their own natural environment, it's different from throwing models at them. Who doesn't love women? And who doesn't love money? Everybody loves money. So Operation Vanguard is made up of intel and security personnel coming from all the agencies. And why do they go out there to endanger their lives? They go out there because they have families to feed. Even though they are patriotic, everybody wants to serve their country, but beneath that patriotism is the money the state pays them. So if the state gives a person 20K or 30K or 40K over the period of their deployment, and on the sides, you entice them with 5K here, 10K here, 15K here, I think there will be a high possibility or propensity that they will take the money. So government can actually win the fight against Galamsey by carrying out putting in place the right strategies. And at the very heart of these viable alternative strategies will be creating alternative jobs for the youth that have been rendered unemployed as a result of the fight against Galamsey. So the fight is winnable, but it will take a much more deliberate, a much more thought-through strategy that is people-centered, that is community-centered, to bring opportunities to these communities, bring opportunities to the youth that are involved in these activities, to take away the appetite for them to want to continue doing Galamsey. But if we live in a country where we believe in sending boys out with some money to distribute or share around and secretly film people, then decide on what aspects of the footage to use in a docu-series and then pass commentary so that the judgment people pass on the subjects of that investigation or collation of evidence or gathering of data, their perception of the people, the viewer's perception of the people will be a foregone conclusion, then that raises some ethical questions. It also raises questions of efficacy and efficiency. When you do this, do you catch people pens down so they get sacked, or you are making the next bunch of quote unquote corrupt people smarter? So now it means people would still want to steal, but they have to be smarter about it so they don't get caught. How about working on the conscience of the people? A story is told about a teacher who wanted to test the thinking of students in his class. It is a Middle Eastern story. It's rooted in Islamic tradition. So this teacher, we are told, decided to give a bed to each of the students. So when he gave each student a bed, the instruction he gave for the assignment was that take these beds, and when you go home, go hide where nobody will see you and slit the throats of the beds. So for each individual, take the bed, go home with it, go where nobody will see you, then slaughter the bed or cut his throat. Then all the students, we are told, came to class the following day with dead beds. except one student or pupil, because I think they were young people, pretty young. So the teacher asked them, how far were the assignments? And many people, they all came out. Some said, he asked one, okay, how did you do it? Oh, I went under the bed and slaughtered. Nobody saw. Another person would say, okay, this was how far I went to slaughter, so nobody could see me. Everybody just narrated how they slaughtered, thinking that nobody had seen them. But one of them came to class with a live bed. He came to class with a live bed. And when he was questioned, why all others had found ways and means to go out of the eye of the public and slaughter their beds, why he didn't do that, he said, sir, while addressing his teacher, he said, I went under the bed. No human being saw me, but I thought God was looking at me. I went to the backyard. Nobody was there, but I felt someone was above the skies who was looking at me. So when you intimidate people with secret filming or recording, thinking that they will not be corrupt, it only emboldens them to be smarter when they carry out acts of corruption next time. But if you sink and sear into their psyche the moral dividend of being incorruptible, then whether you secretly film or not, they will not be corrupt. This is the fundamental point we are seeking to establish. Secretly filming people does not in itself end corruption in Africa. What it does is it makes people who want to be corrupt smarter next time, so they don't get caught. Yes, of course, you can talk about the element of deterrence, the element of surprise and all that. But then where these secret filmings have taken place, apart from stampeding government to sack people, some of whom have died, we are told, what have we achieved? Is it that corruption in those areas has ended completely? And this government is saying it can't rely on edited footage with predetermined commentary to sack people. So it says it would rather want to see the full footage, unedited. Because sometimes you may be luring a person to take money. The person may resist. The public reserves the right to know the level of resistance the person put forward before succumbing to the allure of money. That would shape a perception of the person rather than just sacking the person. Isn't this fair? So we aren't against anybody. And it's not because we've ever taken up a client that was a subject of secret filming and a selective presentation of the footage to shape people's perception in a certain direction. We are only saying for us to have a much more long-term and efficient effect and impact vis-a-vis the fight against corruption, we should psych people up to know that their morality should be what should dissuade them from carrying out acts of corruption. But if we only think we are intimidating them by throwing out young men with secret filming devices, and when they go, they don't catch them in their natural corrupt environment. But they set a trap for them. Who doesn't like money? If your annual income is 150,000 and you have to continue working so hard, leaving your house at dawn to work for 365 days, and somebody wants to give you a third of that on a silver platter, how many people will resist that? So government says the rules of engagement have changed. Premiering a video alone does not suffice as enough grounds to sack people. And the information minister made it quite clear. So therefore, this is a tectonic shift in the way this country sees the works of private, investigative bodies. That is not enough to sit somewhere, record Kweku or record Fatima too. Decide what portion of what you have covered over a period you will use. Pass commentary over it and call for the person to be sacked. Saying you are naming and shaming. Just like the analogy of the students and the birds they were to slaughter. When people find that they have a moral obligation to be incorruptible, then whether you secretly film them or not, they will try to uphold their patriotism and nationalism to want to serve the Republic of Ghana. So I think the fight against corruption can be won. And the fight against Galamsey can be won. But that cannot be won only because edited footage will be made public with premeditated commentary to cause people to lose jobs when they were sitting somewhere and somebody came and lured them with money. And I believe this shows that there has been a change in the way the state has got intel agencies that gather data all the time. But how do they do it? And again, why do you if you really want to tackle corruption, of course, there needs to be transparency, accountability, we agree. But when the final work is done, can't it be presented so the right steps are taken by state security and intel agencies? Why this public premiering? Why? Why? So it only makes thieves smarter. It doesn't give them a compelling moral reason why they should not be corrupt. It only makes them smarter people at being corrupt. And I keep asking, over the past few years that secret filming has been done, what has changed in the fight against corruption? You can't be doing, as a country, we can't be doing the same thing expecting a different result. So I think I agree with government that more introspection has to be done, a bigger picture has to be presented, and unedited footage. If the recording was done for over 3 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever weeks, number of weeks, we need to see the whole footage. We need to see the whole footage, the unedited footage, so that people, without any commentary, so people can pass judgment. Because after all, the mandate the president has is the mandate of the people. And people reserve every right to see the bigger picture before they can impress on government, before they can, push government to take action. So I think we need to use advocacy to tackle Galamsey. And of course, we hear that concessions are still given to people, when in fact we say we are fighting against the scourge of Galamsey. But I believe that if there is national goodwill in tackling this canker, then we'll be able to make some headway. But if you secretly film people, cause them to lose their jobs, you are telling others they can only be smarter when they get corrupt. Because for as long as they are not secretly filmed, they can continue to be corrupt. But if you give a compelling moral reason through advocacy, community level engagement, or if you really want to, film people, film them in their natural environment. Don't go with money to lure them. Thank you so much for your time.